One Native American tribe became so powerful, even the strongest nations couldn't ignore them. Their rise wasn't quiet, and their name carried weight across thousands of miles. Most history books skip over what really happened, but once you hear how far their power went, it's hard to forget. This Native American tribe is the Comanche. Their story begins with a bold decision that changed American history forever. In the late 1600s, a group of Native Americans made a choice that would transform them from quiet mountain dwellers into the most feared warriors on the continent. These people originally belonged to the Shoshone tribe, living peacefully in the Rocky Mountains. Life in those high peaks was tough but predictable. They hunted deer and elk, gathered wild plants, and survived harsh winters by working together in small family groups. The mountains provided everything they needed, but resources were limited and competition was growing fierce. Some Shoshone families began looking beyond their mountain borders. They heard stories from traders about vast grasslands stretching endlessly toward the horizon. These tales spoke of enormous herds of buffalo, open skies, and opportunities that didn't exist in their crowded mountain valleys. The grass wasn't just greener on the other side, there was actually enough of it to feed an army of buffalo. The decision to leave wasn't made lightly. Abandoning their ancestral homeland meant giving up everything familiar and safe. Competition for mountain resources had reached a breaking point. As Shoshone populations grew, finding enough food became increasingly difficult. Some families realized they needed to find new opportunities or face slow starvation. It's hard to plan a future when your stomach keeps reminding you it's empty louder than a mountain echo. The journey south required incredible courage. These early Comanche had to leave behind established camps, familiar hunting grounds, and reliable water sources. Walking hundreds of miles while carrying everything you owned was like the world's first moving day. Except the moving truck had four legs and occasionally wandered off to eat grass. The Great Plains presented both incredible opportunities and serious challenges. The endless grasslands supported massive buffalo herds that could feed many more people than the mountains ever could. But plains life required completely different skills, from tracking animals across open country to creating shelter without trees or caves. No trees meant no shade, so the sun became an uninvited roommate who never took a day off. As they settled into their new environment, these former mountain people began developing new ways of living. They learned to follow seasonal patterns of buffalo herds, adapted their hunting techniques to open grassland, and discovered how to thrive in a landscape that offered no hiding places but endless possibilities. The split from their Shoshone relatives created two completely different cultures from one original people. This migration positioned them perfectly for the next major change that would define their future and make them legendary across the continent. Spanish colonists brought many things to the Americas, but nothing transformed native life more than the horse. For the Comanche, meeting ththese four-legged gym-buff deer-turned transportation machines marked the start of their rise as North America's most skilled cavalry. At first, the Comanche probably wondered what these strange animals were, deer that gave up jumping for hauling people. The Spanish guarded horses as symbols of power, but the Comanche quickly realized they meant freedom, speed, and hunting success. Unlike other tribes who took generations, the Comanche went from running shoes to horseback boots practically overnight. Kids learned to ride as soon as they could walk steadily, skipping the tricycle phase to master stunts that would impress pro riders today. They became horse experts, breeding some of North America's finest herds, so large that finger counting was useless, and the first prairie accountants might have been Comanche. Buffalo hunting changed forever. Instead of exhausting foot chases, mounted hunters could race across plains, bringing home months' worth of food, clothes, and trade goods. Militarily, Comanche warriors could strike fast, vanish quickly, and shoot arrows at full gallop, making their horses into mobile weapons. The bond between rider and horse was so strong, enemies probably thought they faced mythical centaurs with bows. This almost supernatural cavalry made Comanche riders feared across the frontier. Their reputation for top-quality horses made them wealthy traders and formidable foes whose approach alone sent chills down enemy spines. Their mastery of horses provided the foundation for military tactics that would make them the dominant force across the southern plains. The Comanche turned warfare into an art form, developing tactics so effective that their enemies lived in constant fear of attack. Their approach to combat was revolutionary, combining superior mobility with psychological warfare that kept entire regions in a state of nervous alert. Raiding became their specialty, but these weren't random acts of violence. Every attack was carefully planned, precisely executed, and designed to achieve specific goals while minimizing Comanche losses. Their raids were planned with more precision than a modern heist movie, except instead of stealing diamonds, they were after horses, and the getaway vehicle was also the target. Night attacks became their trademark technique. Comanche war parties would approach enemy camps or settlements under cover of darkness, moving silently across the plains like deadly shadows. They learned to navigate by starlight and avoid detection even in completely unfamiliar territory. Scouting was crucial to their success. Days or even weeks before an attack, Comanche scouts would study their targets, learning guard patterns, identifying valuable resources, and planning multiple escape routes. Their scouts were so good at staying invisible that enemies started wondering if every prairie dog mound might actually be hiding a Comanche warrior with excellent patience. The element of surprise gave them enormous advantages over larger, better-equipped forces. While their enemies prepared for traditional battles with organized formations, the Comanche struck quickly and disappeared before effective resistance could be organized. It's like they invented the original disappearing act. Houdini would have taken notes. Mobile camps made retaliation nearly impossible. The Comanche rarely built permanent villages that enemies could target for revenge attacks. Instead, they lived in teepees that could be packed and moved within hours, making it impossible for pursuers to track them down for payback. War party organization was flexible and efficient. Small groups of warriors could conduct quick raids for horses or captives, while larger forces could overwhelm significant targets when necessary. Leadership was based on proven combat ability, ensuring that the most skilled warriors made tactical decisions. Their hit-and-run tactics were so effective that frontier settlements developed a case of collective paranoia where every dust cloud on the horizon looked like incoming Comanche cavalry. The constant uncertainty kept settlements in a state of nervous tension that was exhausting and demoralizing. Weapons training started early and continued throughout a warrior's life. Young men practiced archery while riding at full speed, learning to reload and fire accurately while controlling their horses with their knees. The Comanche adapted new weapons while maintaining their traditional advantages. They perfected the art of vanishing after raids so well that their enemies probably started checking behind rocks and tumbleweeds, wondering if Comanche warriors had learned to become one with the prairie grass. The ability to strike and vanish made them seem almost ghost-like to their terrified victims. The reputation they built through military success would soon translate into political influence that extended far beyond the battlefield. The Comanche created their own nation without asking anyone's permission, controlling territory larger than many European countries. Their domain, called Comancheria, stretched across vast areas of modern Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, New Mexico, and northern Mexico. If Comancheria had been a modern country, it would have ranked among the top 20 largest nations in the world. Though their border security was definitely more active than most, and a lot faster on horseback than any TSA line. This enormous territory contained valuable resources, important trade routes, and strategic locations that made controlling it extremely profitable. The Comanche understood that owning land meant controlling everything that happened on it, from trade to settlement to warfare. Their political system was completely different from European-style governments. Instead of having one central ruler, the Comanche operated through independent bands led by chiefs chosen for their proven abilities. Their government structure was so decentralized, it made modern federal systems look like dictatorships, though their meetings probably involved fewer lawyers and more war councils. Each band operated independently within their section of Comancheria, making decisions based on local conditions. When larger threats appeared, multiple bands could combine their forces rapidly, creating powerful armies that could overwhelm most opponents. Leadership was earned through demonstrated success in warfare, hunting, and diplomacy. Chiefs had to prove their worth continuously, and followers could switch to different leaders if they became dissatisfied. This merit-based system ensured that competent people made important decisions, If a leader couldn't deliver, people voted with their horses, literally. The Comanche forced major powers to recognize them as equals in diplomatic negotiations. Spanish colonists, French traders, Mexican authorities, and later American officials all had to deal with Comanche representatives as independent political leaders, not as subjects. Tribute payments became a regular feature of frontier politics. Mexican settlements paid annual tribute to avoid devastating raids, essentially buying peace from the Comanche. The Comanche created the first successful protection racket on the American frontier, though their collection methods were considerably more direct than modern organized crime. Trade agreements gave them additional political leverage. The Comanche controlled access to valuable buffalo hunting grounds, horse breeding areas, and important travel routes. Anyone who wanted to trade or travel through their territory had to negotiate agreements that benefited Comanche interests. Border enforcement was handled by regular patrols of Comanche warriors who monitored their territory for unauthorized entry. Diplomatic flexibility allowed them to play different powers against each other, switching sides when advantageous and maintaining independence from all outside powers. Their diplomatic skills were so effective they could have taught modern politicians about negotiating from a position of strength, though their war paint was probably more intimidating than any business suit. The political power they developed through territorial control would prove essential for building the economic networks that made them even more wealthy and influential. The Comanche built a commercial empire that stretched across half the continent, creating wealth through trade networks that connected tribes, settlements, and nations. They operated the first successful interstate commerce system in North America, though their shipping department occasionally wandered off to graze or chase a buffalo. Buffalo products formed the backbone of their economy. Comanche women were master craftspeople who prepared hides so skillfully that they became the gold standard for quality across the trading network. A properly processed buffalo hide could purchase horses, weapons, metal goods, or other valuable items from traders hundreds of miles away. The horse trade made them incredibly wealthy. The Comanche bred, trained, and captured horses in such quantities that they became the primary suppliers for much of the southern frontier. Their animals were famous for being strong, fast, and well-trained, basically the sports cars of the plains, but with better fuel efficiency. Women played essential roles in the Comanche economy. While men focused on hunting and raiding, women processed hides, manufactured trade goods, and managed daily economic activities. Their productivity levels would have made modern CEOs weep into their spreadsheets, assuming the CEOs didn't run at the first sign of a buffalo skull. Seasonal trading patterns followed natural cycles of plains life. Spring and summer were devoted to buffalo hunting and gathering raw materials. Fall became the main trading season, when Comanche bands traveled to established markets to exchange goods with other tribes and European merchants. Trade route control provided additional income through fees and tribute. The Comanche charged merchants for safe passage through their territory, essentially operating a toll road system. Enforcement was swift, efficient, and came on horseback, not the kind of toll booth you tried to drive past. Their reputation for honest business dealings was so solid that even their military enemies trusted them in trade negotiations, which was like getting a glowing Yelp review from someone you ambushed last week. Captive integration and trade was a controversial but economically important part of their system. Some captives were adopted into Comanche families and became full tribal members. Others were traded to different tribes or ransomed back to their original communities for valuable payments. Wealth distribution supported their entire social structure. Successful traders could afford multiple wives, large horse herds, and elaborate personal possessions. This prosperity provided resources needed to support warriors, elderly tribal members, and community activities. Their trading posts weren't marked on maps, but if you heard drumming, smelled cooking meat, and noticed nobody arguing over prices, it meant business was booming, and you'd better show up with something worth trading. Economic success provided the foundation for their rich cultural life, supporting ceremonies, arts, and traditions that defined Comanche identity. Life in a Comanche camp was like living in a finely tuned machine that ran without clocks, paperwork, or micromanagers. Everyone knew their role, and the entire settlement could relocate in a matter of hours. Their mobility put modern moving companies to shame. No cardboard boxes, no paperwork, just pure coordination on horseback. The teepee was a masterpiece of nomadic engineering. Made from buffalo hides stretched over wooden poles, it balanced strength with portability. A seasoned family could set one up or take it down faster than most people today can pitch a tent with printed instructions. And this came with built-in insulation and zero factory defects. Gender roles were clearly defined, but grounded in real-world needs. Men hunted, fought, and protected the group. Women ran the domestic economy, prepared food, crafted clothing, and raised children. The system wasn't about hierarchy. It was about making sure nothing fell apart when survival depended on everyone doing their part. Comanche children grew up mastering survival skills long before adulthood. By the time they were teens, most could track an animal, ride bareback, and navigate open plains without a compass. Forget badges or certificates. Competence was the only credential they needed. Learning didn't happen in classrooms. Boys gained skill by shadowing warriors, training with bows, and watching elders. Girls were taught food preservation, sewing, and how to run a household in motion. Storytelling filled in the gaps, carrying cultural knowledge that never faded with time. Spiritual life emphasized harmony with the natural and unseen world. Animals, landscapes, and dreams were full of meaning. Spirits were part of everyday life, and people treated them with care and caution. Vision quests helped young people mark the shift into adulthood, not with a speech or diploma, but with solitude, reflection, and spiritual tests. Their oral traditions were libraries without shelves. Important knowledge passed from generation to generation in stories so detailed and consistent that you didn't need backups or data recovery, just a good memory and time around the fire. Marriage was rooted in practicality. Wealthier men might have multiple wives, but this wasn't about luxury. It was about labor power in a world where everyone had work to do. Arranged marriages were common, negotiated between families to create alliances and distribute resources wisely. Food was central to daily life. Buffalo was processed into jerky, pemmican, or eaten fresh. Nothing went to waste. Women knew exactly how to dry, store, and prepare enough meat to last through lean seasons without spoilage or waste. Social life was based on kinship, achievements, and age. Elders were honored for their experience and often served as advisors. Young people earned respect by proving themselves in hunting, raiding, or craftsmanship, not by talking about it, but by doing it. Entertainment wasn't just a break from work, it was woven into life. There were games, dances, and gatherings where stories were shared and songs were sung. No one needed screens, subscriptions, or spectator sports when the whole village showed up to participate. The strong cultural foundation they built over generations would prove crucial as they faced external forces that threatened to destroy everything they had created. The mighty Comanche Empire began crumbling not from a single crushing defeat, but through a series of disasters that struck like a slow-motion catastrophe. It was like watching their mobile fortress of freedom get dismantled piece by piece, except each piece represented something essential to their nomadic way of life. Disease devastated Comanche populations more effectively than any army ever could. Smallpox, cholera, and other illnesses brought by European settlers swept through their camps repeatedly during the 1800s. These invisible enemies killed faster than warfare, and the Comanche possessed no weapons that could fight back. The systematic destruction of buffalo herds was like watching someone deliberately demolish the foundation of Comanche civilization. American settlers and soldiers killed millions of buffalo, not just for meat or hides, but specifically to force Plains tribes into starvation and submission. The buffalo slaughter was so thorough, it made the Great Plains look like the world's largest outdoor graveyard where the Comanches' mobile grocery stores had been permanently closed. Within just a few decades, herds that had supported Plains tribes for generations were reduced to scattered remnants. Railroad construction split the vast buffalo ranges that had sustained Comanche life for centuries. These iron roads brought settlers, soldiers, and supplies deep into traditional hunting grounds. Journeys that once took months now required only days by train. The United States military shifted from defensive to offensive strategies during the 1850s and 60s. Instead of merely protecting settlements, the Army began systematically hunting down Comanche bands. The Army's pursuit strategy was like having a very determined bounty hunter who never gave up, never got tired, and had an unlimited expense account for ammunition. Comanche horse herds became primary targets for military destruction. Soldiers would locate and slaughter entire herds, leaving bands stranded and impoverished. Without horses, the Comanche lost their mobility, their ability to hunt effectively, and their military superiority. Food shortages became chronic as buffalo herds disappeared and successful hunting became nearly impossible. The Comanche found themselves trapped between advancing settlements and military forces, unable to access traditional hunting grounds. The situation became so desperate that the plains that had once supported their mobile empire now felt like a giant outdoor prison with invisible walls made of soldiers and settlers. The Red River War of 1874 to 75 marked the final military defeat of free Comanche bands. Multiple Army columns converged on remaining strongholds, destroying camps and forcing surrender. By 1875, the last free Comanche bands were confined to reservations in Oklahoma. The transition from complete freedom to restricted reservation life was traumatic for people who had never lived within artificial boundaries. The Comanche story didn't end with military defeat, but transformed into something entirely different, proving that true strength comes from adaptation rather than simply resisting change. They found ways to preserve their identity while embracing new realities. Reservation life was harsh and unfamiliar, but the Comanche gradually learned to work within this restrictive system. They developed new economic activities while preserving their language, stories, and traditions. The Comanche proved that trading their mobile empire for a fixed address didn't mean surrendering their warrior spirit, though the new neighborhood definitely had stricter rules about where you could pitch your teepee. Modern Comanche government operates from headquarters in Oklahoma, serving over 17,000 enrolled tribal members. The tribe has developed successful business enterprises while maintaining their cultural heritage, becoming a model for how Native communities can thrive in contemporary society. Cultural preservation has become a major focus for the modern nation. They operate language programs to teach traditional speech to new generations, support artists and craftspeople, and maintain ceremonial practices that connect them to their ancestors. Educational initiatives ensure young people learn both their heritage and modern skills needed for success in contemporary America. They've mastered the art of being traditional warriors in modern suits, which is probably more challenging than learning to shoot arrows while riding a horse at full gallop. The Comanche influence on American military tactics was significant and lasting. United States cavalry units adopted many fighting techniques originally developed by Comanche warriors, and their mobile warfare strategies influenced military thinking well into the 20th century. You could say they helped write the early playbook for hit-and-run tactics long before anyone called it strategy. Contemporary artists, writers, and cultural leaders continue sharing their people's story with the world. They work to correct historical misunderstandings and ensure authentic perspectives are included in discussions about frontier history. The Comanche transformed from being lords of the mobile plains empire into successful citizens of the modern world, proving that true warriors adapt to win new battles rather than just mourning old victories. Economic development projects provide employment and revenue for tribal members while supporting broader regional economies. The tribe has invested in education, healthcare, and infrastructure that benefits both their own people and surrounding communities. The Comanche Nation continues growing and evolving, facing modern challenges with the same determination and adaptability that made their ancestors successful on the Great Plains. Today's Comanche people carry forward the legacy of one of the most powerful and influential Native tribes in history, honoring their ancestors while building a future that would make those legendary warriors proud.